Hello, today we're going to be going over Unit T, big question number 2. And as you can see here, we have a graph. I know it seems a bit confusing, but don't worry, I'll walk you through it. And luckily it's color coded so you can notice it. And hopefully you can notice extra color right here. Okay, so starting off. The question asks, how do the graphs of sine and cosine relate to each of the others? Emphasize asymptotes in your response. And it has like 4 parts: tangent, cotangent, secant, and cosecant. So starting off with tangent, we know that tangent equals sine x over cosine x, and we know that if cosine equals 0, there will be an asymptote. Now, first off, you see here that I have a red. We have a red. The red represents my sine, so that's a sine I have graphed. Now, cosine is represented by the blue one, the light blue one. Now the reason I have these graphed is so I can demonstrate how the rest of the other graphs can be found within these 2 graphs already. So we're going to work with tangent. If cosecant equals 0 and that's an asymptote, we know that the asymptote, you know that the cosecant of 0 found on the unit circle would have an asymptotes on pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. So, as you can see, I've already marked it on here. And we know that right here it's marked into 4 quadrants. And the pattern for a tangent would be positive, negative, positive, negative. That's why right here you see it rise, and you see it drop, and rise again. And then you see here it drop. Because it follows the pattern. Now, moving on to the next one. Cotangent. Cotangent is cosecant x over sine x. And we know that if sine x equals 0, there will be an asymptote right there. Now, this is orange, so make sure you look for the orange. Right here, I've already marked the 3 asymptotes that we will find. We'll find one at 0, at pi, and at 2 pi, because the sign of 0 is found there. So, what does this mean? It means that if you were to graph, well, you see how we have tangent, we have tangent already graphed right there. Cotangent is similar to this one, except think of it in a backwards form. So it's similar to that way. Think of it as a reciprocal form of this. Now, moving on to the next part, secant. Secant, how does this relate to this graph? Well, secant equals 1 over cosine x. So you could think of it as it's the reciprocal of cosecant. If we already have cosecant here graphed, and it's the blue graph, the best way to possibly think of this is think of it as graphing it the reciprocal form. So you see how it's graphed right here? It would be the opposite, or flip to the other side. The same thing applies for cosecant, which is 1 over sine x. If sine equals 0, there will be an asymptote. We already have our sine graphed right here. It's in red. So basically, as you see here that it rises, it would actually not rise, it would drop. And here, instead of dropping, it would rise. So that's what I mean by it's a reciprocal. So basically that's how these 4 relate to these 2 graphs, which would be a cosine and sine. So as you can see, they all have connections based on their asymptotes and the way in which they're graphed based on the unit circle, because they have patterns of, for example, sine has positive, positive, negative, negative. Cosine has positive, negative, negative, positive. These patterns apply with these things in order to help us graph them. So just as a recap, we know that sine starts off with a positive, that's why it rises, and it goes up again with a positive, then a negative, so it drops again, and a negative. So now cosecant would be the reciprocal of that. The reciprocal of this would be negative, so it would drop, negative, positive, so it would rise, positive, and it would rise again. So you're going to have to use your imagination, because if I draw it, it's going to confuse you even more. Now, same thing would apply for cosine, which right here you see it's the blue one right there. We have that it's positive, so it rises, but then it's negative and drops. Negative again, drops, and then it rises again because it's positive. So secant, it would be the reciprocal. It would actually drop, rise, rise, and then drop again. So hopefully you understood, and hopefully you paid attention to the color coding on which I use.